6 million lives. It is a number so vast that the human mind struggles to comprehend it. If we were to observe a minute of silence for every single Jewish victim of the Holocaust, the world would be silent for more than 11 years. But behind this staggering statistic lies a question that has haunted humanity for decades. It is a question that demands an answer, not just to understand the past, but to protect our future. Why? Why did one man, Adolf Hitler, harbor such an intense, consuming hatred? How did a failed artist from Austria convince a modern, educated nation like Germany to build an industrial machine designed solely for murder? To understand the darkness, we must peel back the layers of history. We must look beyond the monster and examine the man, the ideology, and the broken world that allowed him to rise. This is not just a story of hate, it is a forensic analysis of the greatest tragedy in human history. To find the roots of this catastrophe, we cannot start in the death camps of the 1940s. We must travel back to the streets of Vienna in the early 1900s. A young Adolf Hitler walked these streets, poor, frustrated, and rejected. He had dreams of becoming a great painter, but the Academy of Fine Arts rejected him twice. He found himself living in homeless shelters, selling postcards to survive. It was here, in the underbelly of Vienna, that the seeds of his worldview were planted. At the time, Vienna was a melting pot of cultures, but it was also a hotbed of antisemitism. Cheap, hateful pamphlets were sold on every street corner, blaming Jewish people for capitalism, for communism, and for the struggles of the working class. Hitler, looking for a scapegoat for his own personal failures, began to absorb these toxic ideas. He began to view the world not as a society of individuals, but as a brutal struggle between races. In his mind, life was a zero-sum game where the strong must dominate the weak. But personal prejudice is one thing, mass murder is another. The transformation of Hitler from a hateful individual into a genocidal leader required a catalyst. That catalyst was World War I. Hitler fought in the German army during the Great War. For him, the war gave his life purpose and discipline. But in 1918, Germany surrendered. The defeat was sudden and shocking to the soldiers on the front lines. They felt they had not been defeated on the battlefield, but betrayed at home. This gave birth to the infamous stab-in-the-back myth. Nationalist politicians and military leaders spread the lie that Germany lost the war because of internal traitors, specifically communists and Jews. Hitler, lying in a hospital bed temporarily blinded by a gas attack, heard the news of the surrender and wept. He did not blame the generals, he blamed the Jews. In his twisted logic, the Jewish people were an international poison that had sabotaged the German war effort. This lie became the foundation of his political career. The years that followed were a nightmare for Germany. The Treaty of Versailles stripped the nation of its land and its pride. Then came hyperinflation. Money became worthless. People burned cash just to stay warm. In this chaos, Hitler found his voice. He joined a tiny political group that would become the Nazi Party. He discovered he had a terrifying gift, the ability to speak to the anger of the masses. He told the German people exactly what they wanted to hear. He told them they were not losers, but a master race, the Aryans. He told them their suffering was not their fault, but the work of a conspiracy. He painted the Jewish people as the puppet masters of the world, controlling both the banks in the West and the communist revolution in the East. It was an impossible contradiction, but to a desperate population, it offered a simple enemy to hate. In his book, Mein Kampf, written while he was in prison for a failed coup, Hitler laid out his blueprint. He described the Jewish people not as humans, but as a parasite within the body of the nation. He argued that for Germany to be healthy again, this parasite had to be removed. The world ignored this book as the ramblings of a madman. They did not realize it was a warning. When Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, the persecution began slowly. It did not start with gas chambers, it started with words, then laws. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripped Jewish people of their citizenship. They were banned from schools, fired from jobs, and forbidden from marrying non-Jews. The goal at this stage was not yet mass murder, it was social death. Hitler wanted to make life so miserable for the Jews that they would leave Germany. And many did try to leave, but here lies another tragedy. The world closed its doors. At international conferences, major nations expressed sympathy but refused to take in substantial numbers of Jewish refugees. Hitler observed this global indifference. He mocked the democratic nations, saying they criticized him for how he treated Jews, yet they did not want them either. This silence from the world emboldened him. It sent a signal that the Jewish people were defenseless. The violence escalated in 1938 with Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Synagogues were burned, businesses destroyed, and thousands were arrested. The mask was coming off. But the descent into total darkness happened with the start of World War II. As the German army marched east into Poland and the Soviet Union, they brought with them a new kind of war, a war of annihilation. Hitler believed that Germany needed Lebensraum, or living space, in the east. To him, the Slavic people were subhumans, and the Jews were a deadly threat that had to be eliminated to secure German dominance. Behind the front lines, mobile killing units known as Einsatzgruppen roamed the countryside. They rounded up Jewish men, women, and children, took them to forests or ravines, and shot them by the thousands. But for the Nazi leadership, this method was too slow and took a psychological toll on their soldiers. They needed a more efficient, detached method of killing. In January 1942, high-ranking Nazi officials met at a villa outside Berlin at the Wannsee Conference. In this meeting, which lasted less than 2 hours, they coordinated the logistics of the final solution. It is one of the most chilling moments in history. Educated men, lawyers, and doctors sat around a table, drinking cognac and calmly discussing the best ways to transport and murder millions of human beings. They turned genocide into an administrative task. To understand the darkness, we must peel back the layers of history. We must look beyond the monster and examine the man, the ideology, and the broken world that allowed him to rise. This is not just a story of hate, it is a forensic analysis of the greatest tragedy in human history. It is important to understand that Hitler did not do this alone. He gave the orders, but thousands of ordinary people executed them. Bureaucrats signed the papers, engineers designed the gas chambers, train conductors drove the cattle cars, and soldiers pulled the triggers. Hitler tapped into a dormant virus of antisemitism that had existed in Europe for centuries and weaponized it with modern technology. Hitler's hatred was absolute. In his final political testament, written just hours before his suicide in the bunker as Berlin burned above him, he showed no remorse. He did not apologize for the destruction of Germany or the loss of millions of lives. Instead, he used his final words to once again blame the Jews for the war he had started. He died a prisoner of his own hate. The Holocaust was not an accident of history. It was not a singular event of madness. It was the result of a long process of dehumanization. It happened because a demagogue used fear and hatred to gain power. It happened because a civilized society allowed the rule of law to be replaced by the rule of race. And it happened because the world remained silent for too long. Today, we look back at the number 6 million not just as a statistic, but as a warning. The logic that led to Auschwitz began with the idea that some human lives are worth less than others. Hitler is gone, but the potential for hatred remains in the human heart. By understanding why he did what he did, we arm ourselves against those who would try to divide us again. We remember not only to honor the dead, but to safeguard the living. Thank you for watching this in-depth analysis. History is a mirror, and we must have the courage to look into it. If you found this documentary informative and believe these stories must be told, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Share this with others so that we never forget.